Liu. No pressure, young lady. No pressure.
I was like, wow.
Well, you have built such a phenomenal reputation in a pretty short time. I mean, really, 3 years ago was your first kind of big exposure at social media marketing world, kind of to the community. Am I right?
It was, yeah. That's the funny thing is I was always an attendee because I
Yeah.
came from the agency side.
Yeah.
And everyone always tells you that you should find a niche and double down on it. And it just turned out that live streaming was going to be my niche and what I became known for. And then everyone, I was like, oh, hi. It's been good. It's been nice. I get to hang out with people like you, and we get to find out all these different platforms. It's been so much fun.
Well, today we're going to be speaking specifically, and we're going to be talking about Instagram Live, which to a lot of us is not necessarily our first channel of choice. Instagram is carving out a space for itself in the social media firmament, but we'll be dealing with all things live streaming as far as that goes. So if you have questions or concerns or comments specifically about anything in the live streaming world, I can promise you Stephanie is more than able to handle it as we go on. Now, let's start with just Instagram Live. Is it the newest of the live streaming kind of main platforms? They were the latest to the party, weren't they?
I would say the latest is LinkedIn because it's still in beta.
Oh, that's right. I guess so.
But yeah,
but everybody doesn't have it, so it's kind of an Instagram-y thing right now. So so I have trouble getting my head around why Instagram Live is such a good opportunity because of the closeted nature of Instagram. Just people don't live in the feed as much in Instagram as say they do in Facebook, or and they don't have the same. It doesn't have the same kind of persistence on the desktop as YouTube. So your opportunities to be successful with live in Instagram, I always think, are far more vertical. They're not as broad based as say Facebook and YouTube. So can you kind of position it for me from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I could totally understand how you would think the same, right? Because having live streamed on Facebook and on YouTube, where you could go live in multiple destinations and sharing that content is just so easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the key, is getting people to share.
Yeah, getting people to show up because no one wants to talk to like a room of crickets, right? But I think what Instagram has to offer is that there are some individuals that just don't live on those other platforms. There are people that are just diehard Instagram fans, right? They love the stories, they love the feed. That's where they hang out. And the conversations, right? The conversations that happen on Instagram are much more different than what you would typically find on a Facebook or a LinkedIn or on a YouTube. So I think from an interest perspective, that's where you could find select content creators, and it makes it a little bit more interesting for viewers on how they want to subscribe.
Different. Give me some examples. Like, how is the conversation in a live stream different in Instagram than it would be Facebook?
So, and I'm going to approach this from like a Facebook perspective, because you already know that I'm a Facebook live streamer, right?
Yeah.
And so on Facebook, or even on YouTube, I could use a third-party platform, something like this, like StreamYard, and I could use intros and outros and all of that other stuff. But on Instagram, it's very much focused on the app itself. So it's recommended that you use the app and the features that come along with it. So they have like a question and answer functionality. You could bring on a guest. I'm seeing more of our clients embrace the picture-in-picture method, where they're on the screen and then they'll share an image and then have themselves on the upper right-hand corner. And then it's kind of like a PowerPoint presentation as they go along with it. So there are different ways that they're hacking it in that sense. We won't go into like the other dark live streaming platforms that connect into Instagram.
Okay. Okay, just between you and me, maybe later on, once we're comfortable with the whole thing. But so the focused on the app, but talk to me about the engagement to a community, because I mean, people are telling me that Instagram Live is awesome for business, and I'm going, okay, explain to me how you like. Is Is it deeper engagement with less people? What does that model look like? How is it better for business, or how does the business really leverage a live in Instagram?
Alive on Instagram. Yeah, I think it really depends on what your run of show is going to be like. I think if you just plan on talking on camera and then that's it, it's not really going to drive that engagement, which is why I had brought up the features of like question and answer and picture in pictures. I'm seeing more people actually get really creative with how they're using their Instagram Live. Like they're now using Instagram Live for virtual co-working sessions. So if you wanted to do like one-on-ones with your, let's say you have a course. You have a course and you want to have like a between you and me virtual co-working session. You do the Pomodoro, or how do you say it?
Pomodoro,
The
like a
Pomodoro, yeah, the Pomodoro. And so they'll say like, okay, we're going to work together. What did you accomplish? Boom. And then
oh, okay.
and so it's interesting how it feels much more connected, right?
So they're using it then as a conferencing tool as opposed to being a broadcast tool.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh.
So it feels much more personal in the fact that the video is vertical versus landscape. I think some people, when they look at video and it looks so produced, that it doesn't feel as intimate. But when it's something where it's like, you're propped right there, you don't have all the fancy graphics and all that stuff, then it feels like you're really in this one-on-one conversation. Like,
That's what I was thinking, is it's kind of a peek backstage. Like now when we produce shows like this, we produce it. The reason that I'm comfortable in this environment is 20 years of broadcast TV. This is broadcast TV. We've got B-roll, we've got interstitials, we've got graphics that we're going to drop in. We switch cameras from a one shot to a two shot. We go back and forth. It's a produced show.
yeah.
And it's phenomenal. I mean, the fact that what used to be a crew of 16 people for me to go live on television is now me and a piece of software and a webcam. I mean, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And we strive to polish it, to create a rhythm and to create a narrative that looks like we've crafted it. And so we follow that TV metaphor. But it sounds to me like Instagram Live is the anti-polished.
It is.
Platform.
It's be more personal. Yes, you can have a tripod, but then if someone asks you a question where they want a more behind the scenes answer, you could just pick up your phone and then take them with you. If someone were to ask me that on my regular show, I'm attached to my desk. Even if I had multiple cameras, I could switch angles. But if you really wanted to see like how my garden is flourishing during the pandemic, I could take my phone and take you out there. So it gives you more of like a walking tour, more opportunity to move around. It's different.
So
And it's
are
fun.
people doing Instagram lives more ad hoc as opposed to planned? Like we schedule our lives. You and I, you have a time. We were just talking about the time slot you have for your Facebook show and how it's entrenched. Do people entrench their Instagram live shows the same way?
I would say those that are looking to increase engagement, viewership, and grow their audience, yes, they are still sticking to having a schedule and making sure that people show up and they block it out on their time. So they try to make it consistent. But I'll say that most people that are just starting out, just like you and I, when we first started live streaming, we would just randomly go live, right?
Yeah.
But we weren't really expecting anything unless you have like a big, huge audience, and they automatically assume like, oh, this is going to be good. They'll hop right in. But even conferences that have to take their events online, I'm seeing them move it over into Instagram Live because they know that that's the primary channel for their specific audience, right? And they're still investing a lot of time in the pre-promotion. I think that's where most people kind of drop the ball. They're just like, well, Instagram's going to send out that notification. I'll be at the top of the news feed. We're all good. But that's really only two ways that you could get that native notification. And I'm a little biased, right? Because I could talk about Facebook for days. I could talk about events and all this and blah, blah, blah. But if you really want to do it on Instagram Live, you have to be very, very committed to what your promotional schedule is going to be in order for it to succeed.
And that was the next question that I had was how do you grow this audience? In YouTube and in Facebook, I mean, we don't rely on the algorithm. We send out emails, we buy ads, we do a lot of different things to promote our lives. That's one of the reasons why anchoring your show to a certain time creates destination as opposed to interruptive viewing. I mean, there's just so little value to suddenly popping up in somebody's feed talking about Instagram marketing,
Yeah.
who happens to be browsing through Facebook and wants to see some funny cat pictures, right? I mean, it's interrupting, as opposed to making it a destination that people come with. My favorite word, intent. If people are coming and watching you with intent, they stay, they listen, they learn. So how do you create that? Like, typically speaking, people's Instagram followings are a smaller number than their Facebook followers, than their YouTube followers. So how do you go about growing that growing your community on, which is obviously going to be one of our charges, is to grow the number of people that we're reaching, to expand our reach.
Absolutely. I think for that, you really have to explore all of the different features and functionalities that Instagram has to offer. If you're only doing stories, you're missing out what's happening on the newsfeed. If you're only doing the newsfeed, then you're missing out on other opportunities to be found in discovery and the top of the feed and all of that stuff. So as far as how to grow your audience and how to grow your live viewers on it, this is the part where you want to take notes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what has worked for our clients is, do a post that's actually in the feed. And everything that has worked out for us is be very, very specific about the call to action. And we will always say the link is in the bio. And in the bio, we learned this from Sean, who you know as well. Sean would have a tap.bio. So it's kind of like a link tree, but I think it's much more fancier. Mm-hmm. And what I like about it is that there you could say, this is when my programming is going to be. This is when this is going to happen and all of that stuff. Then you have your Instagram story highlights. That's where you can put all your pre-promo stuff. That's where you have your Instagram stories that you could put into the highlights. And then when you're doing the Instagram stories, take advantage of the countdown timer. This is the part where I'm like, okay, great. You have a graphic that has the date and the time, but use the countdown timer, because that's the fun part, is when people tap it and they say like, okay, I want to be notified when this timer goes off, because then now I know that, oh, it's Abalash and it's going to be Steve and it's going to be Jen. I can message them from my own personal account and be like, hey, looking forward to seeing you Thursday at 2 p.m. See you there. Is there any questions that you have? But you're now taking that engagement and you're sliding into the DMs. That's where I find that when you're having those conversations, they're like, oh, wow, she really wants me to show up. She really wants me to be there to engage with her. And they're just going to grab for that opportunity.
Okay, let's pull this apart, because there was a lot of little pieces that you dropped there. So to start with, you're doing a lot of your promotion in your normal feed. So every post that you have is posted with intent. And the challenge with Instagram, which so many of us have, is that you can't link right within your post. So you have to send people to the bio to link. But you're saying, so post with intent, always driving traffic towards what your live stream is going to be, or at least a substantial number of your posts during the week, driving people towards your live stream. Now, how we overcome the limitations of the links is when you go to the link in the bio, that link is linking out to another website, to a directory site. There's one called Linktree, and you're mentioning another one. So this is an actual tool that you use where you can have multiple links that appear basically as people just click on it and it pops open a browser-like window, but they're not leaving Instagram per se. They still feel like they're in Instagram, but you can have multiple links. That's where you have your schedule. So people say, okay, Stephanie's live on Thursday at 1 p.m. And if people are interested in it, you get them then to tap on a post which has a countdown timer, which is kind of like subscribing. It's like saying, notify me, right?
Yes, exactly.
So when we do a webinar, we get people to register for our webinar, and then we have an email sequence. This is old school. This is like practically using a hammer and chisel on granite. We have people. Then we if you subscribe, you get a notification right away that you've subscribed to the webinar. But then an hour before the webinar, you get an email notice. You get a notification. So that's very similar, except you're replacing the email sequence with a DM coming from the host. So that's something you have to manually go in and do in order to make sure that you have engagement, because that way you're not performing to crickets. That's
exactly. Yeah, I love how you broke that down. That is like the repurposing gold right there.
Well, we have to see the path. But what this tells me is that it's a big commitment to make Instagram work. No different than others. Sometimes we get the feeling, because it feels so ad hoc, that there isn't the intentional process into getting to that point where we go live, right?
Yeah, I feel like most people don't take that into consideration. That's why you and I are marketers. We
Mhm.
think about the user experience. We think about the whole flow, the framework that has to be done in order to get that person there. There's the, awareness to consideration and all of that wonderful stuff. The other thing that I'll throw out there is we've been experimenting with our clients, and I really haven't told anyone else this, Steve. So
So it's just between you and me?
just between you and me. Something that we've been experimenting with is called calendar marketing. Have you heard this?
No.
Okay. So there's this feature. It's a website called eventable.com.
Eventable?
Eventable.com. And what it does is that instead of getting people to subscribe to your newsletter or to subscribe to your messenger bot, they can subscribe to your calendar events. So
Oh,
now they could
event
subscribe
table.
to, yeah, Eventable.
Is it event table or eventable?
Eventable.
Okay.
Yeah. At least that's how I say it.
Doesn't matter. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
looking at it right now. Got it.
And so what's really cool about it is that your viewers, your subscribers, they can subscribe to an RSS feed. And then you could segment your audience by like, okay, well, people are only interested in Lights Camera Live, or people are only interested in the 360 Marketing Squad, or if they're interested in all of the shows that I have, then I can
Oh.
combine them. Then you could send out notifications. So I could say, hey, Steve, in 5 minutes, we're getting started. Remember to open up your Instagram Live. And that has been so interesting just to see the subscriber rate and I could see how many shows they've subscribed to. And I know that I'm on their calendar because I don't know about you, but I live and die by my calendar these days. If it's not on my calendar, it's not happening.
So you would put a live in. As soon as you have the URL for the live, it then appears, and they can subscribe to that calendar, which is a back. Well, they are going to get notification. Now, do you determine when they are notified?
You can determine the length of time. So it could be 5 minutes before, 10 minutes, 15, 30 minutes.
Do you capture is it an opt-in? Is there an integration through to your CRM?
Yes, you could take in the emails as well if you wanted to, which I do, because then, of course, from a marketer's perspective, right, just putting on that hat again, I could create a custom audience. I could do some targeting. I know that they're most likely to engage with me on Instagram because that's where I could create separate calendars.
Yeah,
There's a separate calendar for Instagram, separate calendar for Facebook, separate
Man.
calendar for YouTube, and I could segment my audience.
Some smarty pants. When I said off the top of the show that I'm going to learn something and I don't care if anybody else does, this is the example. You don't know this. This is something nobody knows yet, but we do this webinar Wednesday every week at Dottotech, my channel, and it's a popular webinar. We do huge webinars, tutorial webinars, but we have been in hiatus for August, and starting in September this month, we are going back, but we're not going to be doing them in a traditional webinar client. We're going to live stream them on YouTube to the main channel. And so we're taking the webinar and we're making it a live stream as opposed to a webinar. We're just going whole hog. And we've been struggling coming up with a way to notify people because of registration. And here it is. So I'm just going to stop the show right now because we have some work to do
Steve, it's
a perfect
really
solution
cool.
for that.
It is. Yeah. And like I said, you could have different calendars for different channels, for different shows.
Nice.
And you could really see who your like diehard fans are. Because I could pull up your name.
Guys yet? Because people are going to buy this. I'm going to buy it.
I don't think they have an affiliate for a bit. To me, it's fascinating because there's a lot of email. I get emails for virtual homeschooling now. I get emails from clients. But when it's on my calendar, I can't tell you how many times I look at my calendar. I'm like, okay, what day is it again? What time is it? What am I doing? How do I prep for it? And so to have it automatically show up on your viewer's calendar, they've already just kind of like blocked it out in their mind. Like I'm there. So it makes it so helpful. And Steve, you could update the description, right?
Yeah.
And it will update the calendar link, unlike, oh, hey, my messenger bot sent the wrong link. Let me resend you something, right? It's there in the calendar. It's automatically updated and they just subscribe to it. I think it's the most brilliant.
Every live feed, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Live.
Mm-hmm.
Eventable or event table. Depends. Canadian pronunciation is event table. Table. Eventually. So
Yeah.
that's very, very cool. Well, thank you for that. Now you completely got me all off track of the normal flow. Uh, and we've dropped a link in there, so that's fantastic. So let's go back for a second to Instagram Live again, and I want to talk about the different, comparing it to the other platforms. When we do a show like this, I don't know if you feel this way, but I always feel like we have to be a cheerleader for the main topic that we're talking about. So I feel like it's almost our responsibility to encourage people to use Instagram Live, because we don't want to say anything bad about it, because it's, it's the star of the show. But that's wrong-headed as far as I'm concerned. I think we want people to use the right tool and look at the tools and make sure that it's being positioned properly for each one. I'm not saying that we should be dissing anything, but
Yeah.
I want to look at the three main platforms: Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook Live. And I want to talk really just kind of honestly right now about what who should be using these platforms and who shouldn't, because not everybody can use them all.
No.
It's a big, we just went through the narrative of doing an effective Instagram Live, of the process that you have to commit to that process. It's the similar process that we would commit to in YouTube or on Facebook. So let's talk about which platform Live is the worth investing in the most at this point, because I think it's wrong-headed for us to go into them all.
Yeah. Oh man, that really puts it up against each other. But here's the thing.
It is. They are. You have to make a decision.
You have to. Yeah, I think it's really, you have to think about what your use case is going to be, right? So for example, one of my clients, we did a virtual event with 2 best-selling authors, and it was going to be a whole thing. It was going to be a fundraiser.
Yep.
Right? And so we decided to go on YouTube for that, because we knew that our audience is very kind of like sketchy about Facebook. They didn't want to be on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so we made that conscious decision to put it over on YouTube, because it gave us access not only for the client to engage, me as a social media partner, the live streaming team to do like pre-recorded videos. That's like the whole vision. You have to figure out what you want your run of show to look like, what you want it to feel like, and then you choose the platform. So for that type of event, like a virtual event, it made sense for us to do that on YouTube, right? Because it was then embedded into a fundraising site, right?
Yeah.
And I bring that up because if they wanted to do that on Instagram, we wouldn't be able to have done that. It would have been very different, because that event used to be a gala. And so we're used to having donors donate $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. So again, you have to think about the use case of what you want your show to look like and feel like.
So in YouTube, with the way the chat works, with the way everything works, you've got the super chat, so people can actually do donations. It's built into the system, so that it's got it's got huge viral reach, because YouTube is such a good search engine. People are comfortable going to YouTube. Everybody's got YouTube on their computer or on their smartphone, and they don't, and you don't. It's easier to get people who are not subscribed to you to follow a story. It's something happening on YouTube. Whereas Instagram, if you've done it on Instagram, it's only going to be people that are following the core, the main topic. You might be able to get get it shared to a few others, but that's very tenuous.
Yeah.
So
you don't have a direct link as you would on YouTube. On YouTube, I could send it out to my audience who are, boomers for this particular client, and they just want a link to go there. If I said, now you have to follow us on Instagram, and then you have to tap on this, it's a different vibe.
So for broadcast, for a broadcast or for a public event like that, YouTube worked, and YouTube also worked because we do have to consider the political ramifications of the fact that some people are not comfortable on Facebook. And Facebook isn't a place that you typically go to with patience. You don't go into Facebook and say, I'm going to spend an hour learning something here on Facebook. It's just, there's a twitch factor to Facebook, because you're going to be always looking at what the next post is, next feed is.
Exactly.
So YouTube works great for that sort of broadcast.
Yes.
What's the best use case for Facebook then? Where does it really show?
And you could already tell that I love Facebook.
You are. I mean, if we're both cheerleaders for our platform of choice. And I mean, it's great, because I'm a much more of a cheerleader for YouTube, as everybody knows. But you have the same loyalty towards Facebook.
Yeah. And that's what's nice is that if I have a question about YouTube, I could always tap you. If you have something about Facebook, I could tap you as well. I think the opportunities that you have with Facebook is very similar to YouTube in the sense that you could embed the video. There's that viral aspect to it. You can take a live video from a page, share it into a group, create a watch party, share it to a personal profile. They could share it in Messenger. It's that whole ecosystem that Facebook has to offer. Not only to mention the fact that you can go live into Facebook events. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could go live into Facebook events and you can gate it with a paywall. So now if you are, yeah. So if you are, let's say a teacher or a course creator and you don't want to muck around with like ClickFunnels and landing pages and emails and all that, Facebook will take care of that for you. Create a Facebook event, go live into the event. People that RSVP can pay right then and there. They get a Facebook notification. They could engage in the event and you could download the video and repurpose it. There's just different things that you can do. But again,
Facebook, the issue there is Facebook gets confusing of what permission you have and what different type. It's the classification of your accounts, pages versus events versus profiles. I think business pages, people get lost in the minutia of that and they think they can do something. And then they realize, oh, I can only do that to a business page. I can't do that to the profile. And so that's where we tend to get a little bit lost. But that's a really compelling story. Now, if you're a choir and you're having a concert, you're going to be getting the choir assembled where you used to do a public event. Now you're going to assemble them and you want to just broadcast that, but you want people to be able to pay to come in. That would be a perfect use case, wouldn't it? And easy because you get the social sharing of Facebook where it's friends of friends, which are typically going to be most interested in it. So you're going to get some nice organic traffic out of it. Even in the Facebook world, you'll get organic traffic at that point.
And it's so much easier for you to get more mileage out of it when you put paid media behind it, right?
That was going to be my next question or my preconception with doing Facebook events. If I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff live on Facebook, if I am willing to attach a budget to it to promote it, Facebook is probably the best place, bang for your buck, for growth. Yeah, because obviously then you can, there's so many different mechanisms. You can retarget. I mean, if you get into the Facebook ad side,
you do the eventable with the emails. Tap into the Facebook advertising.
So that's the strength. So if we look at YouTube as strong organic and strong broadcast, Facebook, if you've got a business case that you can attach a budget to it, and if you want logical gates put up immediately, things like paywalls, making the private things, making them exclusive events, Facebook, great. So where does Instagram come in then? Is it the intimacy of Instagram? Is it the conversation? Is it
I would really say it's the intimacy of Instagram. I find that some of the most interesting conversations from the brands that I love, like Peloton and the instructors, are happening only on Instagram Live. And that is a FOMO that I can't, like, I could find the replays on Facebook. I could find the replays on YouTube, but on Instagram, unless they've put it into IGTV, I miss it, right?
Is that, you just pointed out something, you said Peloton.
Yeah.
And I immediately went, it's generational. Instagram is like for you millennial, I know you're just probably on the cusp, but it's your millennial network. It's not for us old farts and it's not for the kiddos. It's for that mid-range, the Peloton users. Because every Peloton user I know is your age, woman.
No, I've seen people your age on the leaderboard and they whoop me because I just started.
Don't say your age.
Okay. But I mean, I love Instagram Live. It just feels much more intimate. And I love that it's also connected in the sense that you could do your Instagram shopping on there. They make it so easy for you. On Facebook, it's still clunky. You've got Facebook commerce shops and it's just weird. And YouTube, you could do the cards, you could do the descriptions, more this than I do. But I find that Instagram Live, if I see something in there, man, I will buy it.
And my daughter's the same. My kids are like all Instagram. Here's the thing, I think, for marketers, advice for marketers, especially for ones of my generation. Do not think that you can step into a platform like Instagram and be successful if you do not immerse yourself in the platform. If you aren't comfortable with DMing, if you don't have those relationships and those conversations especially through the DM interface within Instagram, if that doesn't come second nature to you, I don't think you can properly understand how to use a tool like Instagram Live for marketing,
Yeah.
because it's not YouTube. It's not a broadcast medium, which is so comfortable to me, which is very linear. I broadcast, there's comments. It's a very, very simple ecosystem for conversation and engagement. Facebook, a little more nuanced, but Instagram is totally nuanced. If you don't understand how to engage in those conversations, which are tripping off your tongue so lightly, but obviously has so much value, then you can't possibly engage in this. So screw what the content is, screw schedule, screw all that. If you can't engage in the conversations on Instagram, if you aren't in that space, you're not going to be successful.
Agree. And it's
Mic
it's
drop.
those yeah, my God. It's one of those conversations. It's a conversation. I feel like Instagram gives you more of a dialogue, and the
Mhm.
dialogue happens in that space, in the DMs, in the comments, in the Instagram live, and you have to be conscious of that. You can't just be like, I'm only going to engage people when I'm live. It's the strangest thing, because if you really want to build that relationship and you want to like get all of those happy brain chemicals, you have to
Yeah.
connect with them in all of those different spaces to have those conversations.
So all of the advice that we give, if you aren't there, that's where it's got to start. So let's go back again. Let's continue our base requirements. Let's talk technology for a minute. So what are you doing? What's the state of the art for you? What's your gear setup like? What are you recommending people right now? Let's talk hardware for a minute, because I love hardware.
Oh yeah. I get away with an Archon mount that just sits on my desk, and it's one of those where I could connect it, I can make it go overhead, and I can take it with me wherever I want to go. I love it.
What's it
Uh,
called?
the Archon mount, it was like the popular one from the Periscope summits and all that, but it's
Okay.
sturdy and I love it.
And it's not a camera. It's just a.
It's
Is
just a
it?
mount. It's like literally sitting here. But it's pretty heavy. But you notice how it has like different arms, and I
Oh,
can
so you
use
use
those
that as a. Oh, it's
as my
called the
tripod. Yeah. And
Archon
so
mount. And so
yeah,
what camera have you got attached to that?
I have my iPhone on there, and it works perfect.
Oh, okay. But you could also like plug a webcam into it, or have it host a DSLR, have it hold a DSLR. So that's how you do your positioning. But that's not what you're using right now. You're just using a webcam right now for your live.
No, this is my DSLR. This is the
Okay.
GH5. Yeah.
Okay.
But for Instagram Live, it's really just it's a very simple setup. It's the Archon mount. It's the phone
iPhone.
itself.
Yeah.
And then because my office has natural lighting, I just use that. If I need to, I could use the lights as well. If you're tight on budget and tight on space, then just get a ring light that has a tripod connected to it for iPhone,
Mhm.
then you're good to go. But for those where I'm doing a client event and I know that the audio is going to be important, then that's like, okay, now we're talking about adapters and, Rode wireless mics that connect into the phone. But a
Okay.
basic setup, if you just have your tripod, your lighting, natural light, and your phone, you're you're off and
That's
running.
the beauty of using the native apps in these is if you have a fairly modern phone, regardless if it's a Android or iPhone, the mics in them are really good, just setting up. And if not, just your AirPods, just using your earbuds,
Mhm.
and the mics on those are that much better, or the wired mic. So your investment in hardware for Instagram Live is pretty minimal. Get the mic.
Minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to everything else for Facebook and on YouTube, it's minimal. And I love it. If a client just says, we just want to do an Instagram live, I'm like, awesome. I don't have to worry about a run of show with multiple cameras, multiple guests, right? It's if it's going to be a guest, it's going to be one guest. It's not like, oh, we're going to have 6 people join the show. I'm like, well, where are they?
So I'm just seeing here the
Very good.
tripod thing you call. I'm just going to put into chat. It's called the Archon.
Yeah, it's called the Archon mount. And Judine, that this model is actually very popular for crafters and scrapbookers, because once you place it on here, you could position it so that the camera is looking down at your project. So you don't even need to have your face in the camera. You're just showing them, how you do your calligraphy or how you're making a project. My Dotto, this.
It's like a document camera.
Yeah, my family is a part of the 501st Legion, for any you Star Wars fans. And so my brother is really into 3D printing and cosplay. And so he has an Archon mount that he just puts in there. And he's just like, all right, today we're going to 3D print this Mandalorian helmet. Let's go for it. Boom. And it just
starts going, and people sit and watch. It's like the new Twitch, like watching people game, watching somebody 3D print. It's so I spent 4 minutes the other day washing a guy power washing. It was so satisfying watching the I think that's COVID lockdown too, though.
Yeah, I feel like there should be an Instagram live of me trying to figure out how to set up this Chromebook for my daughter's kindergarten. I'm like, why is this not working?
You definitely should have recorded that. That
would seriously, Steve, the Wi-Fi on the Chromebook is terrible, like connecting to our Wi-Fi. Don't ask me why, but my husband has like this 30-foot Ethernet cable. And so he plugged it into the router and it goes across the living room, around the dining table, and there it is. And I was like, okay, that worked.
So the kid's wired in. So now you got cables hanging from your space. It's like you're a teenage gamer again.
Yes, it's like
because the Wi-Fi is not working.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. So you went with the Chromebook. Is that the school district that decided it?
Yeah, the school district assigned that. So they're using Microsoft Teams. That's like a whole nother ballgame. I'm Mac, my husband's PC. So
okay, at least you have a balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's kind of go. You've got to be completely off topic. We're gonna go, Stephanie. So a few more details on Instagram Live. Is it the same length issues, just whatever is appropriate, or is there a best length of time for lives? Because one of the things is you got to give people. Got to be patient when you start, because people sometimes see the notification, they wrap things up before they come in, right?
Yeah. So, and that's the interesting thing, because you and I on Facebook and YouTube, we could do a countdown timer. We could let people get settled in. We could remind people to close their tabs and pay attention, right? Mm-hmm. On Instagram, it's very much like you get a notification and you either just start the show or you're welcoming your viewers. Now, as far as like the length of it, this was the part that kind of cracked me up when Instagram Live first rolled out, was that it's limited to an hour. Okay. Just the fact when they say it's limited to an hour, I was like, oh, that's too short. But realistically, when I do go live on Facebook or on YouTube, it's 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So I don't even know why. Just when someone tells me I can't do something, the motivation in me is like, well, why not? But yeah, you're limited to an hour. So think about that. Again, if you need to do a virtual summit, if you need to do a virtual event, and it needs to extend that time, it's easier to do that on the other platforms because you can have that one link. Whereas on Instagram, you're like, okay, and then come back, in 30 minutes when we could have a new link or whatever.
Yeah. But when you also consider the limited resources you have, you can't do B-roll, you can't have pre-recorded video that you're inserting, like a little tutorial piece. It's I think an hour is probably very reasonable, but making sure but also recognizing that it's going to take people a few minutes to get into the feed, so that you don't do a 3-minute feed, Instagram Live, and then come off. Probably, but 7 to 10 minutes minimum is kind of the space that you'd want to have, rather than considering what's too long. Consider what's too short.
Exactly. Yeah, I've found, just like you said, the 7 to 10 minute mark is usually the spot that most people are willing to dedicate. The longest that I've seen for maybe like 30, 45 minutes is from our good friend Jen Herman, because she loves to do rants.
Yeah.
And I think people, they just love to get her riled up, and because it's real time, you could instantly see her reaction when you say something silly to her. But yeah.
There we go. So the other question that I have, kind of from a technical perspective, and I think with Instagram Live, we might be limited in more than we are on the other platforms, is multi-streaming. There's Is it preferable to do to kind of hack a multi-stream? What's your position on that?
It again, I think you just have to be respective of the different audiences, right?
Yeah.
Simply because, well, first, let me backtrack a little bit. Like, let's say if I was using something like lula.tv, which allows you to go live on multiple platforms, including Instagram. How legit that is, I don't know, but it works. And so I would just have to be mindful of my TikTok audience is very different from my Instagram audience. The TikTok people that found me is usually because I'm just being ridiculous and I'm cosplaying as a stormtrooper. The people that find me on Instagram have probably met me at Social Media Marketing World, right?
Yes.
So to multi-stream to both of them, I think of like a Venn diagram. Like, where is that? Is there anything that's kind of smack dab it in the middle? The other thing too is that there are other things out there that do let you multi-stream to Instagram and Facebook and all that other stuff. And the only reason why I'm cautious about it is because I don't want to break your system. I don't want to break your hardware, because the debate about whether or not that's legit is still right. But I would still hesitate to do an Instagram, a Facebook, and a YouTube all at once, because on Instagram, it's vertical. So you have to be very mindful of how you're using your hands, how you're delivering your content. Because if you're like, hey, this is awesome, your hands are chopped off. Right? It looks great on Facebook and YouTube, and on Instagram, it's like it's weird. So be mindful of that.
Just a little bit outside the box. Remember back in the early days of Periscope, and when we do live streaming, I think Blab was still live at the same time. I used to take my phone and put it in a bracket next to my webcam, and I would go live on one and live on the other on two different devices. And that's back in the day when I thought it was best to be everywhere at all times with all people, and then that sort of thing. I guess you could still do that.
You still can. Yeah. If you have the internet bandwidth to do it, do it.
Try it. But
Try it,
I
yeah.
think that there is increasing value in you just said knowing your audience and honoring their time with you. This isn't show and tell. This isn't look at me, I'm wonderful. You want to deliver value to your community. And you do that by recognizing part of that is the platform and the people that are there. And your YouTube audience is going to be very different than your Instagram audience.
Yeah.
We've talked about the differences. So it's far better to commit 100% to one, I think, and just kind of in this case, but like there's an argument that can be made for multi-streaming to your Facebook group, your Facebook business page, and your YouTube channel at the same time. That's an easy argument to make on either side. I don't think it's as an easy an argument to say, let's go into Instagram Live and one of these other platforms at the same time. Good. So one of the things that we're going to wrap things up with kind of stepping outside of it. One of the things that you came from a agency background, but you're really good on camera.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
that.
Like
I've been doing it my whole life. I should be good, but you put me to shame in some ways. What's the inquiring minds want to know, where does this confidence come from, and where does this screen presence come from? How can other people capture the Stephanie screen presence? Because I got to tell you, you're way more impressive on camera than you are in person. I'm just saying right now.
That's so funny. First of all, I think it has to do with the fact that I haven't seen or talked to like people outside of my house for a while. I have to like, oh, can I get an interview so I could be on a podcast? I could talk to someone other than kindergarten and crayons. Honestly, I really, really value the best practice of pretend as if you're talking to a friend that you haven't spoken to for a very long time, which I haven't spoken to you, Dotto, forever. Not since social media marketing world.
Yeah.
And so getting to geek out with you is what's really exciting to me. I think when people are starting with live streaming, they're too concerned about what other people think. Mm-hmm. And the best example I can give you is that if Dotto and I were at a Starbucks, at a coffee shop, you will 100% be sure that when I'm talking to him, I'm just only focused on him. I'm not worried about the barista or the other lady in line that's trying to get a refund or whatever. I am just focused on him. And when we want to have a break in the conversation, then I could take a look at the comments and see like who else is there. But I think that's where the confidence comes from, because when you talk to a friend, why would you be shy in front of a friend? A friend is a friend. A friend is there to support you. A friend is to be there for you. And so that's where I really feel like that
I love
confidence is also just that being comfortable with you.
trusting your audience. You know,
Yeah.
recognizing that your audience isn't different than you. That people listening to this right now, they don't want to see us make mistakes. They want to see us succeed. They want to learn from us. And the only time that they feel uncomfortable is when we feel uncomfortable. We tend to not look at ourselves with the same grace as we look at others. So when we make a mistake here, we go, "Oh my God, I made a mistake." Everybody's laughing at me. Nobody's laughing at you, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, they don't. So okay, so that's good. So I want to wrap things up with letting people know that if they want to know more, obviously you've got your live stream. Tell us your live. You do a weekly live stream on Facebook, which is
It's Lights
Thursdays at
Camera Live.
2.
Yeah. Thursdays at 2. Yep.
Can you drop in the chat? Oh no, you can't drop in the chat. You don't have access to the chat. What do people search for on Facebook to find you?
Type in my name, Stephanie Liu, and you will find the business page, and then you'll find it there.
Good stuff. And you, along with a whole bunch of your buddies and our buddies, have this like amazing bestseller. So if you want to learn more from Stephanie, social media marketing, like how come I wasn't invited? That's what I want to know.
We were invited to the party.
Yeah.
It was Eric who had the opportunity to write a book about social media marketing. And he said, well, if I'm going to write this book, I want to have co-authors. And so he reached out to us because he knew about the 360 Marketing Squad, and it worked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got this great group of the 360 Marketing Squad, some of which have been on the show already, and some of which are going to be on the show. But check it out, The Ultimate Guide to Social Media Marketing with Eric and the crew. But Stephanie, you contribute. Now, what part did you contribute in this?
I've contributed to the part mostly about video marketing, live streaming, repurposing content. But I will tell you my favorite chapter that I wrote was about how to build your social media team. And I say this because not that many people know about my agency background, the fact that I built teams from the ground up, not only for the agencies, but for my clients. So everything as far as like, what is a community manager responsible for? What does an analyst do? Why do you need a dedicated analyst? What's the difference between a social media manager and a strategist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of that plays a factor when you are managing a campaign, at least for the corporate clients that I have. But even so, when I'm working on live streaming production, I still divvy out the roles like, okay, you are a scene switcher. You're just switching the scenes. You are the producer. You're helping me with the run of show. You are the strategist, and you're going to help me lay out what the paid media strategy is going to be. And so that's one of my favorite parts of the book, is really diving into how do you build your team so you could scale and grow a lot faster.
I think we haven't had any repeat guests here on the show, but I think I want to get you back to just talk about that. That sounds like it would be a good show for us here, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, we'll my people will call your people. Okay, good stuff, folks. We've dropped the link in the chat for you to follow Stephanie. Check out her Facebook Live, buy the book, and I just got to thank you so much for sharing with us. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks
luck.
for having me.
Good luck with your homeschooling. Stephanie's daughter started kindergarten yesterday or today?
On Monday.
On Monday. So, and that's your oldest. It's your only child, right?
My only one. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that we know of. So good luck with the homeschooling. I'm going to put you in the green room for a sec. I'll wrap things up, but thanks so much. It was just awesome.
Thank you.
I learned, I wrote stuff down. Thank you. As I told you folks, no question, Stephanie, one of the real shining lights in our space, and I learned a lot. I'm sure you did as well. So thanks so much. Next week coming up, we're going to be on to YouTube marketing as we're going to be joined by two buddies, Rob Velasquez. He is actually, I've known Rob for I don't know how many years. He used to be with Thinkific. He lives here in Vancouver. So Rob's going to be joining us. He is with TubeBuddy, which is a terrific YouTube optimization tool. We're going to be talking about YouTube marketing, so there'll be much more to learn next week on Just Between You and Me. My thanks to our hosts at InVideo. We didn't get to talk too much about InVideo today during the show, but you know just how amazing a tool it is for creating all of your content for video and for all of these social platforms that we're sharing. Stephanie is just awesome. Make sure you check her out. Until next time, I am Steve Dotto. Have fun storming a castle.